Okay, looks like we are live on Facebook. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. I hope everyone's doing well out there on this Wednesday. I am joined by Faith Gordon Mazur. Hello, ma'am. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you had the time in your schedule to share with us this morning. And we really appreciate it. And I look forward to our conversation this morning.
Me too.
Awesome. So what's been going on with your with you in lockdown isolation these past couple months?
Yeah, life has actually pretty much followed a
Absolutely.
similar track. I've been fortunate. I'm a licensed professional counselor and I work in private practice. And almost immediately, once the lockdown occurred, insurance companies came online with the ability to support telehealth, and the owner of the practice had already been doing some research on platforms. So we just got right up and running, which was great for my clients to have that consistency when everything else was changing out in the world. Um, so other than leaving the area to go to the dojang, and instead I go to the basement, I've pretty much been rocking and rolling doing the same stuff, like seeing clients throughout the day, training downstairs. I've taken over my husband's cave. That was his space until the pandemic. Now I have to get at it like once, like 1 or 2 hours a day to do some physical activity down there. But yeah, otherwise, everything has pretty much. I'm super excited that we opened the dojang this week. So I was there physically training on Monday night. But
Yeah, there's nothing that replaces that feeling of being there with everyone else.
true. Yeah, absolutely. It's the energy, you
Yeah.
know.
I totally understand that. I was in the basement for I can't tell you how many classes I taught from the basement.
Hmm.
So it's cool that your professional part of your life as well as the martial arts part of the life was able to transition, and it's cool that we have this platform and opportunity to do things like this, because even 10 years ago we probably wouldn't have had the resources to be as flexible as we are now. So
Yeah, I definitely was thinking about that, like our adaptability and flexibility, and how much gratitude I have that these things do exist that allow us to just keep moving and doing the things that we can do instead of focusing on what we're not doing. You know,
absolutely.
I've loved watching everybody with their flags up, and it looks like studios like dojang studio, but also studio like film studio. Like I've loved seeing what people are putting out.
Yeah, absolutely. From the flags in the background to like the big the lighting setups.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Logos.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Been great.
one of our students hooked me up with a bunch of the vinyl logos, like the fathead style logos. Is
Yeah.
made our like you said, it made it look official.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's
Yeah.
go ahead and let's talk about your history in the martial arts. If you could just give us a brief overview of how you got started in the martial arts. Obviously, I know it was a family affair,
Yeah.
but take us back to how it started.
Yeah. So as I was thinking about it, family is the theme, all the way through as I was thinking about some of the things that we were going to discuss today. Um, so my dad is Nate Gordon, and he's a 6 Dan master. And when he was in the military, he did some training, some type of martial arts while he was in the army. And so fast forward for him, now he is a husband, a father, has his own budding business starting, and he was a father of 3 girls. So he has a lot of background in sports, but like nothing that he could really translate to us, I think was his thought. And he would take us down to like a local middle school and shoot hoops with us on Sunday mornings and stuff like that. But I really felt like, and he has talked about, he wanted something that we could all do together as a family. So there was that aspect of it. And then there was the other piece, which is that we grew up in an Italian Catholic neighborhood in South Philadelphia, and we were neither Italian nor Catholic. So that created some issues, in particular for me. I was shy, I was quiet, little tentative, and so there were some issues in my neighborhood that seemed problematic. And I think what my dad wanted most of all for me is to feel strong in myself and have a sense of self-confidence that I could stand up for myself or whatever was happening. My sister, she was 4 years younger than me. She was like really, she was scrappy and she was tough. And so she wasn't having the same issues as I was, but he said, let's all go. So that's what happened. And about the time was the studio Shin Karate at 7th and Oregon had opened maybe like 6 months prior to my dad looking into this. So, he went up there and he met with Grandmaster Shin, who was Master Shin at the time, and got us all enrolled. And so that's where it all started.
That's amazing. So, and that was around, what was that, 1981?
81. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. It's crazy to think back to that time where you said it's like 6 months after the opening of it. Just amazing. Did that building look pretty much the same as it does now?
Yeah, I mean, over the years it has gone through transitions, but for the most part, yes, it looked the same. Like I believe that the downstairs which is now the dojang, was like a mattress warehouse for years, or some kind of a warehouse for years, and we were upstairs. Everything was upstairs. So when it really started, there was very small office space, little lobby, and the floor. And that floor went all the way out to the furthest wall. So like years later, it became a lot of like closets for inventory, Grandmaster Shin's office. But when it started, it was as wide as I guess the top of that building was.
Awesome. So do you have memories of like when this World Association started back then?
I don't know that I have like really solid, like I remember little things, and I think that's true throughout. I'm like a really good storyteller, but not a great historian. So I remember testing up there, and that lots of people would come together to test in that space, which was kind of tight. Even when it was wider, it was still tight for the amount of people that would come down. And the Korean masters would be there. They would be present for those early tests, and it being like an all-day event and everybody kind of packed in. And I remember the convention. We were invited to come to the second day of the convention to train. I remember it being like in a hotel environment, like a big banquet room. And then I remember some of those earlier like black belt tests or get-togethers being like, now we have pretty consistent like where we go to do things. Then it was like we might be here one year, might be somewhere else another year. But just like the bringing together all the people that were in the region, to have seminars and dinners and stuff like that. Yeah.
Cool. I remember, I was trying to think about the first time I remember seeing you at a event, and it was probably one of the regional tournaments at Fernwood. And for some reason, even early on, I think before I had my black belt, I would look at the dan numbers. And I remember seeing your dan number, and I'm assuming I'm pretty sure you were a third dan, right? You were a third dan back then. And I was just like, wow, she has a really low dan number for a third-degree black belt. So what year did the three of you all get your black belts at the same time, or what year was that? Or
yeah, so okay, so I was a third-degree black belt forever.
right.
Let's just put that out there. That test occurred in 1993.
Okay.
For third dan. If we rewind a bit, testing for first dan occurred under Master Godwin. And my sister and I, Nikki, we were the first people out of Shin that failed a black belt pretest. So we were told that we were not ready to go forward. And up until then, my dad, myself, and Nicole were always together. So that was a defining moment in terms of like, he went first. So he was probably maybe the second or third cycle of black belt people to test for black belt out of Shin. And he tested with 3 other people. And my sister and I waited 6 months and we tested after my dad. So our numbers are very different than his. His is like 020 and ours are 021, 075 and 021, 076. And I think, that does stand out to me as this moment that is important for us, but I think it's really important even like going forward as we talk to people about testing for black belt, in that Nikki was maybe 10, 11 years old. So she was the youngest person to ever test for black belt out of Shin Karate, South Philly, because at that point it was adult men and teenagers. And Master Godwin, believe was right in the sense that he's not sending you if you're not ready. So when you get to go, that you are prepared to wear a black belt, to be a black belt. And for some, that's a hard lesson. It might be that's the thing that has them leave and say, well, I don't want to do this anymore. For us, it was like, let's do it. Let's do what we need to do to earn that rank.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of those where, and I had that recently happen in our dojang, where I had a kid who was testing for Chodanbo and he was ready. And honestly, he took it very well. And he came back the next time better prepared than I could have ever imagined. And, that was, like you said, it's a lesson where, and there's a lesson to anyone. Mm-hmm. You just keep trying, like just because you get knocked down, you get back up and you do it again. So
and I think it's a significant moment as an instructor,
sure, to
sit with your students, because you want your students to succeed. You're working with them, you're trying to mold them. And so for him to have to say like, no, this isn't happening. And we were a family, we did everything together. It was like, no, not this thing. Right. And so, yeah.
Awesome. What year did you get your black belt?
I think that was like 86.
86, okay.
86. Yeah, I think 86. I was like turning 16 the following year. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Can you share some memories of Master Godwin as an instructor back then?
Sure. Okay. So Shin went through a lot of changes before Master Godwin got there. And when he got there, he was Mr. Godwin. He was not Master Godwin, right? He came in at a time. So like when we first started, Master Charles Irwin was the teacher that taught on Mondays and Wednesdays. And Mr. Jules Dulce was the teacher that taught on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And Grandmaster Shin was the teacher that taught whenever, like he filled in the schedule sometimes, right? So there were some changes that occurred and there wasn't a chief instructor for a while. And like different people kind of coming in and out, testing the waters, seeing if they would fit or not, and they weren't fitting. And so then John Godwin comes in and he really anchored us. He set some things in motion and established some things at the studio that felt really important and significant, like in terms of nurturing and developing the students and having pre-tests and a way of doing things as a martial artist, and competition and just everything. Like he brought a lot of that to the table. Discipline. Yeah. So those are the things that stand out.
Excellent. And honestly, almost 40 years later, he still is doing that
Yeah.
and has done it for generation after generation. It's amazing to see. When I first started in KMAI, Korean Martial Arts Institute, I didn't know. I mean, I kind of knew that he was the instructor at headquarters, but to see all of the people that he influenced through his short, it wasn't that long either, through his short time at Shin is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was a couple years and he made a huge difference. And so when I think about my sabonim, that's who I think of.
Mm-hmm.
Um and when he left to go to Delaware, we were so sad that he left. And then to just kind of see what he did, uh how that evolved for him, and then how that evolution for him helped evolve for so many others, like all the masters and everything that's happening down there and throughout our organization. It's just really wonderful and amazing to have witnessed and to have a part of that.
Right. Cool. We have a couple of people saying hi. Tom Lyon says hello, and Mr.
Hi,
Chris
Tom.
Connolly is also checking in and saying good morning.
Good morning.
If anyone has a question that as you're watching, please feel free to shoot us a message. So if I've got my timeline correct, shortly after Master Godwin leaves, does your dad start his? When does Black Belt Academy happen?
Okay, so
I know I'm really testing you on years and dates.
yeah, so we have to get back to Grandmaster Shin because I have good stories for you. So don't
Well,
let us forget him.
we can
But
start
I will
with,
get
we can go back to that first if you want.
you. Okay, all right, let's do that and then we'll come forward.
All
That'll
right.
help my memory.
Okay.
All right, so with Grandmaster Shin, you had asked me like some memories that I have, and I have a lot of memories, where I have a lot of experiences. I have a couple standout memories, right? So the one is, and this is a story my dad tells a lot about us training and throwing a high block. And at the time, now we have those like foam pads that we use with swatters. They help us with in class to help people get their blocks correct or their kicks or their stances. Back then we had sticks. So bamboo sticks are what got swung to make sure that you were doing things properly. So every time that he would swing, I would throw my high block, but I would also kind of like cower down, like I would hide underneath my high block. And he would come back to me over and over again in the class and say, trust your technique, trust your technique. And for a long time, I didn't trust my technique, but I got it eventually, right? And so usually my dad will take this story in another direction where he tells a funny tale about my sister, but I'm going to kind of take it differently for myself, which is that fast forward years later, and the next instructor after Master Godwin was actually Lewis Marvel, and he develops the East Coast demo team, and he's there for several years. And that demo team was full of like just a talent squad or people that became talented, so like Master Brian Fisher, Master Michael DePietro, Sal Convento, Fong Fan, some of my friends like Mauro Conti, who now does jujitsu and comes in and teaches for us. There were just like a lot of young men, 15, 16-year-old guys that were part of this group. And they were going around. I had to ask Master Fisher a little bit about this because I feel like he remembers things clearer than I do. Although I think his memory is starting to go too, because he was like, I think this, but I'm not sure. So I'm just going to tell the tale anyway. So we wind up at this event in New Jersey where the team is performing, like they're the show, during this event, whether it was a grand opening or a tournament or something. And I'm there, they're there. And Grandmaster Shin drove a Jag, right? I don't know if you know that. He had a Jaguar. And I'm like 18, 19 years old, got my license when I was 17, had a lot of problems with driving, a bumpy start, meaning like I bumped into a lot of cars. So the teenager East Coast demo team boys would tease me about my driving inabilities. Anyway, we're all at this event, and he says to me at the end, I'm going to take the van and take all the demo team back. You drive the Jag. And I'm like, excuse me? And he says, Fate, you're going to drive the Jag back to South Philly. Like, okay. And so I get in the car. They're all getting on the van, looking at me like, oh no. And I drive the Jag back to Philadelphia. And I kind of think that memory stands out to me because I think that was another one of those moments where he was saying, trust your technique. I trust you. You trust you. So, and then I have a third one with him with the kind of same theme is, so now fast forward years and years later, because I've already been out for 11 years and I come back, and out of the instructors class evolved this leadership training class. And leadership was third dans, instructors that weren't masters, all coming together once a month to train. And at the time they were training downstairs Shin Karate. So I've come back off this long hiatus and he invites me to join the class. I think he mentioned to my dad, Faith needs to be in these classes. So I come downstairs and it's my first time ever. And I'm looking out. Some people are familiar to me, some people not so much. And he says, welcome back, Faith. You take warm up. And I'm like, what? Like certain people were higher than me. My number's lower, but I'm just like, okay. And I kind of feel like, again, that was him like, trust your technique. So those were some of the memories that stood out. I feel really fortunate because I worked at headquarters. So like I spent a lot of time, like it was myself and Maggie, and there was one other person at the time named Adele that were the workers. And so like I got to see him a lot. I don't know that I cataloged all of those as important as they actually were. You know what I mean? Like I was there so much and we were in and out together so much, but he was a huge influence on me growing up.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't know that you worked at headquarters.
Yeah. Yeah. My whole undergraduate time, I was at Temple University and I was after school coming there and I would type certificates because we hand typed, and I would type GUP cards and filing things. And yeah, that was my first official job.
When was that? What was the time frame on that?
The late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's funny. Well, I mean, it's not surprising, but I can't go through an interview with most people and not mention Maggie.
Yeah.
And how she was a big influence for a lot of people. And I guess obviously from you too, if you got a chance to work with her.
Yeah, she was absolutely very influential in my life and in like as a young adult woman, as a role model, like she taught me a lot. It was great to be able to have that experience of working with her. And it was really incredible to be able to work in a space where you were indirectly meeting people that were all over the world. Like, you know, we would come together and meet at world events, but like on the phone, I'd be talking to people that were in different places in the US, different places in the world, about their studios, about their GUP tests, about their students. So it was a really rich experience to be having at like 19, 20 years old.
Sure. When Erin talks about when she was there during med school, the people that would just pop in and train, or people that would come and she would have to train, where someone would come up and just be like, hey, I need you to teach this person 21 to 30 on their one steps.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I feel like this kind of brings us up to the question that you were asking, which is, so after Master Godwin left, Louis Marvel was the next chief instructor that came in and occupied Shin for several years. And I think he really built upon what Master Godwin was setting in motion. So like there were a lot of things that came out of his time there. And again, a lot of talented martial artists under him, and the development of that East Coast demo team. concept and traveling around and performing and competing and pre-tests and SWAT weekends. We would sleep over, we'd paint the dojang. Like there was a lot of stuff going on, and like very tight-knit community, which I think does bring me back to what I was saying earlier to you, is like the theme when I think about my martial arts life is family, and like how our friends become our family, how our fellow practitioners become our family.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So my dad winds up opening up a small club out of the University of the Arts. That's his very first dojang. And he's teaching like 2 days a week at the University of the Arts. And then eventually we move up to the far Northeast, and Black Belt Academy started in 1991.
Okay.
So we're coming up on our 30-year anniversary next year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. So in that time where you were working at headquarters, were you still training at headquarters or in training with your dad, or how did that work?
I was like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I would train at headquarters. Sometimes I would work out with my dad at University of Arts, help teach. Sometimes up in Bensalem. And then in 1993, that is when I tested for Samdan, and I also graduated from undergrad. So those two things happened simultaneously that spring. And then I went away, like I went off on a summer break and never returned kind of thing. I was down the shore for the summer and I was kind of partying, and came back. I felt out of shape. I had gained some weight. And unfortunately, I allowed that to be something bigger. And so then I kind of got bigger and bigger and more uncomfortable and not. So that was kind of like how I stepped away from the training. Even though I was still connected with World Tang Soo Do, I let my training go for a long time.
Going back real quick, you did the hard part. You went through college and you actually tested for your third degree while in college.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where people say that doing school is tough, and then keeping your training up is tough. You know, what would you say to those people that struggle with the balance?
I would say it's important to find it.
Yeah.
It's harder to go away and think you're coming back.
Sure.
So if there's any way that you can keep up your training, even if it's at a reduced capacity, I think what I've learned over time is that we set those expectations. And if we're clear what they are, I believe our instructors will work with us.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if you're like a 4-day, 5-day a week helping out, and then you're starting college and you're like, I can't do this. Well, no, of course you can't. However, you can get in twice a week, or you can help out once, or you can show up at the GUP test, or occasionally, like you can stay present without having it be everything, so that you make space for this other big goal that you're trying to accomplish.
Gotcha. So it sounds like, and I've had a number of friends come, well, I've met friends from people who, you know, took a break and came back, and then they're in it. I can name, you know, yourself, Master Hobbs, Dana Scott, you know, a number of people, Brian Kerr, who trains at Legacy. It sounds like to me, you know, I said, what advice would you give someone who wants to get back into training? And it sounds like just do it. Just get back in. It might not be easy, but
Absolutely. I think that my thought that I was like waiting for the right moment, or I kept saying, I remember I kept saying to my dad, like, I'm just going to lose some weight and then I'll come back. And he said, Faith, come back and then you'll lose some weight.
right.
And I'm like, I can't do it that way. Like in my mind, and I think this was like a real ego battle. It was like, I was thinking about how I was before and having to somehow be that in order to step back onto the floor. But the floor doesn't remember me. The floor doesn't care. The people who are there now are going to welcome me no matter what. So, I let that get in my way for a really long time, like too long, 11 years. That's a long time.
But what's important is that you did step back on the floor.
For
That,
sure.
and I'm sure have inspired, countless people through your journey coming back and teaching and all those things.
Yeah.
We talked about this through text. You shared a lot of the stories, and you talked about the East Coast demo team. You shared stories of those, the inspiration of Master Godwin doing the Mysterious World of Tong Sudo demos. And my last interview, Master Salona mentioned that you did one of those, like the broken glass breaks.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was so funny when that came up in her interview. I was watching and I'm like, oh, was she doing forms on broken glass? And then she said, no, and then she kind of like shouted me out in her interview. And I'm like, oh yeah, that happens. Yeah. So Master Godwin, so again, at that time it was Mr. Godwin and Mr. Marvel. They were doing a lot of mysterious things
crazy.
and inspiring people to follow in their footsteps, so to speak. And it was almost like a rite of passage when you got invited or asked or prompted to like do one of those things, So I remember Master Fisher and Master DePietro doing the bed of nails sandwich, and then eventually that evolved to, like, I think Rob Massaroni and one of his classmates, it might have been Ryan Knowles, doing that sandwich at a demo. And I can't remember what demo it was that we decided we were going to pay homage to all these things, so that we incorporated them in the demo. And the piece that I did was a blindfolded speed wheel kick on broken glass. That was my break.
Oh, the things we do in our younger years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still remember Master Klaus has a picture of him doing the
The
bicycle
buckets with the nails.
And he
the
was
spokes.
He was like, I was stupid. I don't. There's no reason I should have done that. I was dumb. Don't do that. And I know for years Master Priest wanted to recreate that, and he did the bed of nails, but he got vetoed on the buckets.
On the spokes.
Yeah. All right. So you kind of touched base on when you came back and started martial arts again. I know, like I said, remembering back at those times, I always heard your name as far as competition. Once you got back into training, what was it about competition that got you motivated to train?
That is what got me motivated, honestly,
Yeah.
Tim. So it was 2004, and I was 33 years old. And as you know, world championships occur on the even years, which means at 33, you've got one shot to try and go. Coming off of an 11-year hiatus, you've got one shot to try and go and see if you can win a World Cup. And that was what I put into my brain. And at the time, Rob Massaroni was the chief instructor at this point at Black Belt Academy. And I said to him, I'm going to make this comeback. And I guess I should also say to you, so like, if I give all the detail, I wound up at my heaviest at like 290 pounds. I made the decision after doing research, like 2002, 2003, to have bariatric surgery. So I had a surgery date set for February of 2004, and Worlds is in July. And I said to Rob, I said, I'm going to get this surgery and I'm going to lose this weight. and I want you to train me for this competition. And he said, done. So the first thing he did was he put together a video for me, because he said, when you have surgery, you're going to be out of commission for like 6 weeks before you can actually start to physically do this. I just want you to watch these tapes. And he did move by move the third sword form, and move by move Kun Sung Gun. And he did them slow, and he did them by the kiat, by the count, and he did them full speed, what you want yourself to look like in a competition. And so I had the surgery, and for 6 weeks I watched those tapes. And then I hit the ground running. Came into the studio in like mid-March of 2004 with the goal of the World Cup. And it did not happen. However, it was an incredible experience to go down there. I think I'm almost positive 2004 was Florida.
Yep. That was my very first Worlds.
Oh, okay. And so I was in the division. I think I was in the division with Stephanie. May have been in the division with Erin, Noreen Khan. And they were all these amazing, strong, young women. Like, they were in their 20s. I was 33. Like, to me, I felt like, oh my gosh, these people are in their prime, and I'm like this other end of the spectrum thing, trying to make something happen here. But yeah, it was really a great experience. And I think that is what kind of kept me going in my coming back. It was training to compete, pushing myself further than I ever had when I was younger. It was a whole different experience of competition once I came back than that former time period in my life.
Sure. And like you said, not an easy division to come back to.
I kind of feel like they were probably like, who is this person? Because they all knew who they were. Like, they had arrived, together, and here I am out of left field, but I had big goals.
But that didn't stop you. You continued to train, and then you did eventually. Did you get a World Cup? You did, yeah.
Yeah. I trained with Rob for several years, and again, the goal was like train for a regional cup, train for a World Cup, and just train. Just train a lot. We were having a lot of fun. You would ask me about some memories that I had of him. You gave me that as a preview. And so, because I had been on such a long hiatus, I missed out on Rob as a student. Like, I drop in and he's fully developed. He's the instructor. He's my mentor. And he was very, very gracious. He gave a lot of his time and his heart to my endeavor. And so regionals in 2007, so that would be like several months after he passed away, that's the first time I win a cup. And I won Region 8s 2007, 2008, 2009. And in 2007, it was like bittersweet.
Right.
And in 2008, I was like, well, I've done this twice. Maybe I could do it 3 times, and that would match his record. And so that was kind of where that motivation came from, to get it 3 times in a row. And then that following year is when I won the Worlds. So it's all senior women's division. It's not women's division, but
that's still a great achievement.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So and to think honestly, in such a short 5, 6, 7 years is in some not a short time, but when you're talking about competing as a 3rd degree black belt, to train hard, and get back to what you know, probably
I
surpass what.
surpassed what I
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
100%. Yeah. And after so Rob is working with me up to the point, you know, that he's no longer here. And then I
Right.
shifted and I approached Master Fisher, who was like a mentor for Rob, and I said, I really want to do this. Like, I still have these goals. I want to make this happen. Like, I want to come train with you if you're okay with that. And so that was what I did. I started to train with Master Fisher at that point. Um, Once or twice a week, I would go to his dojang. I would do like official training, and then I would do unofficial training. He would give me these like out of the box assignments to do when I wasn't there. I would be training at my dojang, his dojang, and then on the weekends I'd be running and doing sprints and half sprints and trying to keep up with SEPTA buses that were driving by my house. Like, he had me doing a lot of things. And so that, yeah, when you say I really did surpass myself and do things I never could have done before or would have tried. I had asthma when I was young and I didn't run at all. It was really hard to do the 3 mile runs. And for me to be doing sprints and you know, like, his philosophy was, you don't ever know what's going to happen at competition. You don't know if you're going to compete and do your Kun and then have to turn around and do it again because you tied. So you have to have the endurance that is going to take your body through whatever it has to do. If you have to fight back-to-back fights, so you're going to do that because you're going to go out and run. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to go out and run. I bought myself a pair of Brooks and became a runner.
I mean, if Master Fisher tells you to do it, you do
You
it.
just do it. That's right.
I mean, if there's, you know, his track record precedes him. I've had the opportunity to train with him here and there, in
Yeah.
Tong Sudo, and we actually trained in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu together.
Yeah.
And you know, when he trains hard.
Yes, he does.
Um, like I said, I remember those early moments for me. It was the early 2000s, and I remember those demo teams with the Black Belt Academy, and I didn't really know anything out of my bubble, and I would just be like, "Who is this team? And who is that guy?" And then I would see him in the ring with, it would be him and Dante Davis and Mohammed Mabrook and
Yeah.
I'm trying Jason Church, Scott Conrad, like all those guys, and I just watch in awe. Sal Convento, John Trotta,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, holy cow. And he would, I mean, they were all really good, but he was
Mm-hmm.
obviously a standout to
Mm-hmm.
me in my early. Him and Muhammad and Dante
Mm-hmm.
were the
Mm-hmm.
guys where it just blown away at
Yeah.
their abilities.
Yeah. And that was you know, that was hard work. What you saw, that was not natural ability, because he was an awkward young person.
Okay.
And so, kind of like thinking about that and then training with him, it was like, okay, he transformed himself. And that gave me that same kind of inspiration of like, it doesn't matter if I was awkward back then. Like, if I work hard, this will look like art. I will be able to do this because he did it, you know, and Brian did it before him, Master Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he was a really phenomenal individual on and off the dojang floor.
I never had the opportunity to meet him personally, but I feel like, from, you know, the things I've heard you talk about, I feel like I understand the essence, and
Mm-hmm.
you portray like what he was as a martial artist and a person, and I know you guys still do runs, even if it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't official this year, but you guys still did a run, right?
It's a color run.
Color
It's
run,
kind
okay.
of like turned into a color run now. Yeah,
Whatever.
so we just show up and we do it. And this year, uh, it this coming fall, it'll happen again.
Okay.
What Black Belt Academy has decided, because, you know, like, people's interests waver and people are doing other things, and um, is that for us, we have to do a 3 mile run as part of our pre-test cycle, right? So what we committed to was anybody who is a blue or black belt, that counts as your run. So instead of our 8 a.m. at Neshaminy State Park, you do your 3-mile run, you're coming to Rob Massaroni's fun run, and we
Right.
will be going for 3 miles. So that color run and the color might all be over after 1 mile. We're going to go for 3. And that's going to be end of September this year.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you, yeah, mark the date. Once you get a date, I'll be
Yeah.
happy to put it out there for you.
Yeah.
I have a couple of, not my questions, but a couple of questions that people are asking. And one of these ties to kind of what we were just talking about. So Dana Clay says, I started my training at 34. I can relate to starting, at that age. What is your key advice on how to accept your limitations? Do you admit faults, or do you just push forward and try all the maneuvers as best you can? And I know the answer to that, at least for you, is
Mm-hmm.
you just do it.
Yeah, you just do it.
Yeah.
I would say that so much of what we learn, I think, or what I remember of the training before I went away and then when I came back, is you just push. You don't push. It's an interesting thing. I heard somebody talk about it recently. I think it was Will Smith talked about it. He says that there's a point of suffering that you must endure. And that is where you want to push to.
Mhm.
You want to push to that point and not beyond. You don't want to injure yourself. You don't want to be out of commission because you did something that wasn't smart. However, being able to push your body in that way teaches you something more about your spirit. So that's what I would say. It is push your body to the limit you can, because what you're doing is fine-tuning your spirit.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. It's like you said, you push yourself mentally, right? So if you get done a form and you finish that form and you think you're tired, you just say to yourself, okay, let's just get through the next form.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do the next form. And then when you get done that form, you say, hey, we did that one. Let's do another, let's just get through this form. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, I got 30 minutes left, or, I've got 45. It's just get through this one and
And then
figure it
take
out.
on that next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when you
Um,
were saying that, Tim, what I was thinking about is like Grandmaster Shin's One More Time.
one more time. There you
One
go.
more time is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I've been doing some work recently with like meditation, like getting deeper involved in meditation. And in meditation, what they say that reminds me of Grandmaster Shin One More Time is begin again. So in everything that we do, you just begin again.
Mhm.
Go back to the beginning, start again, keep going.
Absolutely. That's great advice. Um, we'll do another quick one here. How's your instruction evolved throughout the years, like you as an instructor? And do you have a favorite skill to teach, or a favorite kind of thing that you like to focus on?
Um, so I would say that probably I had more active role as an instructor before my hiatus than after, interestingly enough. Because when I was younger, I was called upon to teach, like when Mr. Marvel was there, when my dad opened the studio, I was teaching. Before I left, I was teaching in a more regular capacity. Coming back, I have worked to figure out a balance between having a full-time career in private practice and when I can come in to teach. And so the ways in which I think that I've helped and taught have been about leadership training. So working with some of the edons, the teenagers, coming in and reading Grandmaster Shin's book about teaching and how to be a leader, and how to motivate students. So I feel like that's kind of where I've been able to incorporate myself, and where my interest lies.
Awesome.
A few summers ago, I got permission to take some of our teenagers and we went studio to studio. We went and visited other dojangs and we would meet together and train together and talk about leadership and talk about instruction and instruction styles. And then we would go and train with someone, like we would go out to a school. Like we went to East Coast, and we were with Master Stum and Master Westrad, and we went to Master Godwin. And I think at the time when we showed up, he was there, E was there. We went to Master Fisher's. I'm forgetting some people. Like, so many people were so open and welcoming and saying, yeah, come on down. And we just kind of went around and trained at different locations. And I would have the second degree black belts keep journals. What stood out to you? What did they do? What did they do that's similar to what we're doing? What did they do that was different that you liked, that we can adapt? And so that has been really a neat experience, to help them evolve in their own like sense of desire to instruct and motivate others.
Awesome. So we're getting, it's actually 10:50. We've been talking for I know we got about 10 minutes left. And it's funny, we haven't got a chance to, we talked a little bit about your dad in the beginning of your story. But tell me, so like you said, going full circle, family now, what does the Black Belt Academy family, as far as your dad, Nate Gordon, and your sister, and I know you have some nephews that train as well.
Yeah.
Tell us about the family nowadays.
Okay. So, all right. So family now, we actually have a newest family member, which is a great nephew for myself, a great grandson for my dad, named Zayden. He was born a few weeks back. Right now, so my dad's a 6th Dan, I'm a 4th Dan, Nikki's a 3rd Dan, Tyler and Jaden are 2nd Dans, and Desi is a blue belt, and Zayden is coming soon, I guess. But like, just to kind of speak a little bit about my dad, I think one of the prep things that we talked about is like, who is he inside, outside of the dojang? I would say he's pretty much the same. He's very dry, he's sarcastic, he's about business, he tells it like it is, no softness or filter. And I feel like he's pretty much somebody that I admire, like that question about like being 30 something. So my dad, when he started, we were kids, he was 30 something and really overweight, and he had a lot of limitations, a lot. And he met those limitations with a philosophy of, don't worry about what you don't have, figure out what you do have and make that the best weapon ever. And so like, he developed an axe kick that nobody would see coming from a middle-aged old man. He would just take people over the shoulder and they'd be like, oh my gosh, Mr. Gordon at the time, like with that axe kick. He really was never going to be a world champion because that wasn't even available to him at that time. But he practiced with like a level of attention to detail. So when I would train with Rob and I would train with Master Fisher, then I would come back and he would just fine tune everything. Like, he knew maybe his body couldn't do it, but he knew what it was supposed to look like. And he would just like dig into those things. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no question that he definitely has a mind and an eye for those details.
The technical.
Yeah, the technical part, from no question. And the countless people that have, achieved the grand champions and just become excellent martial artists is, like you said, for 30 years on his own, almost 30 years on his own now. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
I remember last year when your dad tested for 6th Dan, and I remember watching him come in, and I know you were very nervous about the test anyway. And I just remember that moment when he came in, and you just relieved, and it was an awesome. His body.
That was a great picture. You did me a solid taking that picture.
Yeah. Your dad just responded, his body couldn't do it, question mark.
Oh, what did I say?
I don't know. Maybe we're talking about like his limitations,
The
and he had to.
techniques. Yeah, 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 yeah.
You're the man, Master Gordon.
That's
There's no
right. Like you don't
question.
have to throw any 360 back kicks. You just hit him with that axe kick.
That's right. My original instructor, Master May Broda, always said, "You can jump as much as you want. I'll be down here waiting for you."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So obviously, the last question I have here, and you've talked about a lot of your role models, but any other role models as far as martial arts or otherwise that you would like to share with us?
Um,
You talked about your obviously your dad and Master Fisher and
Master
you know,
Godwin,
yeah.
Grandmaster Shin. Outside of the martial arts, there's a woman by the name of Yvonne Agazarian who developed system-centered theory. It's a way of practicing therapy. And so it's interesting because I my mentor in my professional life, her name is Dorothy Gibbons. She was a part of this system-centered theory idea. And so that's how I got introduced to that. And so to come from the World Tang Soo Do Association and look at how Grandmaster Shin, he didn't have this training in system centered, yet he followed like his work exemplified what she described as how systems operate, how things work, the evolution, development, and transformation of beings. And so it's like I learned this principle, idea, theory from her. And then I look at how we put it into practice in the martial arts. So it felt to me like these two people who are both no longer with us, but are founders who have given so much to their fields, have like the perfect marriage or integration in like who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing and it's a really interesting thought as far as that goes. That you know as far as his peers, I don't think there was anyone as far as Grandmaster Shin goes that was able to um, get people to follow him and follow in his footsteps and share a goal and a vision like him.
Yeah.
So and
It's the vision and it's also the development of leadership to live beyond him.
mhm.
And so I've kind of witnessed Yvonne's theory, the same thing happened. It was like watching them as they aged and how they put people in place that were capable and knew what the vision was to continue to carry it forward is just unbelievable. Such a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And we're, blessed to be a part of the association. It sounds like the group that you're a part of professionally as well
Mhm.
is amazing.
Yeah.
All right, let me see. We'll finish this off. Tom Lyon's message earlier is, do you have a favorite memory as far as your dad goes? I know that's probably a tough one, but or just a fun story to finish us off.
Oh my goodness, I can't finish you off with my fun stories. I'll
Oh.
get I'll get in trouble. Let me
uh,
see. uh I mean, I think the moment that you described was a pretty big one. Um he had been struggling a lot with like two not great knees. And so for him to come, he was invited to test when he was in better shape and he declined the test um in order for someone else to go ahead of him. And so then to come back and have the test be occurring when he was like really compromised, that was why I was so nervous, like as our parents get up there in years, not many of them are going to be having advanced dawn tests,
right.
so it's like what he's in store for. And just his ability to push, I think that again kind of comes back to what I was speaking to earlier, is like pushing beyond the limitations. And this idea that your technique is there, whether your body is cooperating or not, like you have it, it's in you. And what you have even more than that is this mental part, the spirit that carries you through. So when he came through that door, that was a moment for me. you know, like he did it. He accomplished this goal.
Yeah, that's there's few things in the martial arts that compares to standing there, well, on both sides, right? Coming in and just being done with it, and it just
Yeah.
kind of everything falls off.
It all settles. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
seeing everyone come in and just being so happy and proud of them for what they accomplished. It's cool. It's a cool moment. Um, so we're done. We're at our hour mark. Thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing your stories with me and our the people watching to get a glimpse into your history and the things that you've accomplished. So thanks for joining me.
This was great. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said to you, it was an honor to be asked, and I was happy to think about all these really great memories and parts, like all these parts of my life that make me who I am. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Take
Tung Soon.
care. Tung Soo.